Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn YouTube and Rumble channel. Thank you for listening on any of the means by which you are listening. X, Facebook, Twitch. Hello to our Twitch audience. Hello to our Facebook audience. LinkedIn, Instagram, all the places. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening. If you wouldn't mind putting in comments where you're listening, it may seem like a simple, stupid thing, but it actually is very, very useful. So today we start a much anticipated series. We're going to interrupt that series Sunday for Mother's Day. I'm going to do a special Mother's Day message, and I'm looking forward to that. I think you're going to like it whether you're a mother or you're not. And it'll be an honor to present it. I've been looking forward to it. I've been writing for about 2.5 months, deciding on what I would do, and we did it. So I think you're gonna love it. So today is as a result of my friend Dennis, who will not be listening, I'm sure, because he is on a very important ride and for honoring our deceased veterans. And he's with the group that I ride with, and he rides with Honor the Warriors Foundation, and they're up at Arlington National Cemetery, and they're going to be doing a 100 and something mile ride broken into 2 days. And so wish I was with them. It's going to would be an honor to do that. So I really appreciate you hanging in there. By the way, Rumble is having service interruptions, and I don't even know if Rumble's actually playing. So if not, I promise I will put the video on there. It'll take a little bit because I'll have to download it and put it on there, but no problem. We'll make it happen. But Dennis had a bunch of questions about Cain and Abel, the sons of the first covenant breakers. And so this will be part one of I don't know how many. And really from Genesis 4 to Genesis 6, hope, rebellion, and redemption. And so Dennis had a whole bunch of questions. So I tried to roll these questions up into one episode, and it turns out that episode would be about 2.5 hours long. So nobody's got, nobody can hang on for that. So we're gonna break it up, however long, and we'll go through. We're gonna pick up on Monday. We're gonna go all the way through to David and Goliath and the giants. I'm gonna actually talk about the Nephilim, and so I don't know if that will happen on Monday. I don't know if I'll get to that, but we shall see. You just never do know. And so what if I told you that the very first murder in human history wasn't just a tragic family fight? What if it was the opening shot in a cosmic war? What if I told you that the story of Cain and Abel isn't just about jealousy or violence, but about worship, identity, and rebellion against divine instruction? The first two sons of humanity. They weren't just brothers. They were symbols. Symbols of covenant obedience. Symbols. Well, both of them weren't a symbol of covenant obedience. Only one of them was. And one was a symbol of prideful assumption, and that their choices, their individual choices, echo all the way into Genesis 6 to the Nephilim and to the spiritual corruption that triggered the flood. Welcome to True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. Today we go beneath the surface of Genesis 4 into the language, the worldview, and the heartbreak that followed Eden's exile. Cain and Abel, the first altar, the first murder. Were they twins? Why did God reject Cain's offering? And what in the world does any of this have to do with divine beings and giants? This isn't the sanitized Sunday school flannel graph version. This is the raw truth, straight from the Word, capital W. And with insights from Hebrew ancient tradition and scholars like Dr. Skip Moen and Dr. Michael Heiser. So grab your Bible. Once you see what's really there, you won't ever look at Cain or yourself ever the same. You will never, once you hear this, between this one and the next episode, you will never look at Cain or yourself the same way ever again. How about let's pray? Heavenly Father, I don't know how to thank you. I'm cranky. I don't feel super great. But there's a whole lot of people out there who got a whole lot worse stuff to deal with than me. I know that I'm a sinner. I don't deserve your grace. But I thank you for it. I ask that you forgive me of my sins, and they are many, so that my prayers might be heard, that you would bless those who listen. I ask that you anoint this completely undeserving servant, such that your words flow through me, and that your kingdom grows, strengthens, and is exalted. Thank you for this tool of the internet. May during this however long, may we redeem it for your kingdom, for your power, and for your glory. And one more thing. Thank you. Thank you for your Son, Yeshua. I pray this in His name. Amen and amen. You know, we say it every week. I say this took me 2 months to write it, 3 months. Welcome to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, where in-depth biblical teaching meets the richness of the original languages and cultural context, bringing the truth of Scripture to real people like you and like me every single episode. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up and for subscribing. By the way, if you're watching, if Rumble is active, and once Rumble is active, you'll see it. If you're watching and not listening, just audio only, you'll see one of those little codes in a box. We're going to tell you what that code's for. And we appreciate you taking notice of that. That stands for something special. It's a gift for you guys. So the names. By the way, welcome to chat. Thank you very much to all of you who have taken the time out to join us here. This is amazing. Just utterly amazing. And I cannot thank you enough. And good evening to all of you. The folks that are new and the folks that have been there a while. And hey, folks that are listening, if you would, let me know how the sound is, because I'm not quite sure. Anywho, so part one, we got to start it somewhere, right? We got to start this thing somewhere. And podcast puppy is rambunctious. We got to start it somewhere. So the names, the hope, the tragedy. The names, the hope, and the tragedy. Today's teaching requires your full attention. I hate to even ask that. This isn't surface level. And if you're new here, I just want to say, if you're new here, kind of how I roll is we roll deep. We roll deep. So that being, here we go. That being said, if I had an echo, I apologize. The thing wasn't plugged all the way in. But when I say we roll deep, that we're not surface level, we look at the languages. We look at, just as our intro states, we look at the languages, the original ancient languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. We look at the culture then. We look at who is speaking. Who is the person speaking? Well, why? Why were they speaking? Who were they speaking to? What was the culture? What was happening? Why was this person from Scripture even speaking to them in the first place, or writing to them? What was going on in the background? Don't you think that's important to know? How about the audience? What was that about? Today's teaching is going to challenge you. But we walk through these things together. This is a result of about 954 questions that Dennis sent to me over the course of 2 weeks, all having to do with Cain and Abel and the original food. Were they, was one a vegetarian? Was the other carnivore? Why? All of these things. I mean, he has a million great questions. And so once I started answering his questions, you know me, I can't stop. By the way, we've done 333 videos on our YouTube channel, True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. Not quite as many on our new Rumble channel, but you're welcome to listen to any of those at any time. They're free. Everything is free. All the resources there are free. So, not for nothing. But, Dennis asks really deep questions, and he asks a lot of them. It's kind of like... I don't know if you've ever been fired at by an automatic weapon. They're just coming. You gotta kind of let them empty the magazine, and while they're reloading, and so that's kind of how it is, and I like that. I come to expect that from him. So this is going to challenge you. I'm without any doubt that today you're going to see something. Today you're going to see something truly profound. And over the next few episodes, again, Sunday's Mother's Day, and I think you're going to love that episode. And like I say, I've been working on it for 2 months. I just, I didn't want to do yet another worn out Mother's Day or yet another worn out Father's Day. It's like I didn't want to give a dollar store card and a tie or, whatever. I wanted it to be something special for mothers. My mother is gone. May God rest her soul. Miss Colleen, who is working, her mother is gone. God rest her soul. By the way, brings up Miss Colleen was raised Catholic. And Miss Betty Claire, sweet, sweet lady, she was not happy about Miss Colleen marrying a not Catholic. And so I have a lot of Catholics, believe it or not, that listen. And so I want to congratulate you on Leo the 13th or 14th, and America on its first, in all this time, first American Pope. And I think that he has Peruvian citizenship because he's been there serving at, deep level for decades. And so, but I want to congratulate on that. And, there's a long way for all of our churches to go, but certainly we can't take any place of superiority. I'm a follower of the way. It's that simple. Now, if you missed, speaking of religion, if you missed the 2-part series on Islam, I would encourage you. Dennis has joined us for a little bit. Hey, listen, say hey to everybody there. Give my love to everyone at Honor the Warriors Foundation, honorthewarriorsfoundation.org. If you're in the mood to give to something really important. They got me up off the couch, and they've gotten a lot of disabled veterans up off the couch. So the work that Jerry and Jane are doing is yeoman's work. It's incredible. Angelic. So anyway, I want to congratulate the Catholic Church, but the series that I did, the 2-part series that I did, it's long, it's challenging, on Islam, the truth that you need to know now, today. I would encourage you to listen to that, gut it out. If you're going on a long walk, put one ear pod in, leave the other out. It's not safe to walk with two. And listen to that. If you can't listen to it all, it'll stop. You can go back to it to remember your spot and play on. Playa. So I want to, Dennis, he can attest to this when he's asked me this question. Really a staccato series of questions, all relating. He knows that I like to answer questions, but he also knows, as any of you who have emailed me at smgreener@gmail.com or put comments, Lord forbid, go ahead and put those comments in to wherever you're listening. If you're on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I won't see them until I go back later, and Facebook suppresses a lot. And so just so you know, there might be 30 comments, and the only ones that remain are 3, and they get to choose. And then the whole video is deleted after 30 days now, so they don't hold on to anything. That's why I say go to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn YouTube channel. Go to the Rumble channel, which if you search The Ninja Pastor, or True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, you'll find it. Click on follow, the whole deal. Click on the bell, whatever you got to do. Because your comments go away and the video goes away. And so it's very, very important if you're listening on Facebook or any of those other places, live streaming, it goes away. They don't keep it forever. And plus that question, it may be a while before I even see it. So first, put it in comments if it's not a really personal question. And then second, put it, once you put it in comments, just copy it and then send it to me at smgreener@gmail.com. I read every one and I answer them, some faster than others as far as the more elaborate things. But I will let you know as soon as I read your question. I will let you know and I will send you an answer. And many, many, many of you have sent questions. And this is as a result of my dear friend Dennis's questions. So let's go all the way back. Not to myth or metaphor. I don't see the point in that. Let's go to the raw, gritty reality of life after Eden. The very first family. I mean, that's what they were. Adam and Eve. We know Eve wasn't her name, right? I did a whole thing, under the live tab. If you can stand and look at my face, and then the videos tab. If you can't stand and look at my face, video only. I think it's also on Spotify and iHeartRadio and just a bazillion other places. Wherever you get your podcasts. So I talk in depth about what Eden and Eve were really about, what Adam was about, the first sin, everything around that. That's free. You can listen to it anytime. So we can't lose the fact that they're the very first family here on earth. The first breaths, nephesh, of human legacy in a broken world. Now, nephesh in Hebrew literally means the being that prays. And then the word praise, Prays, the being that prays. Isn't that something? the first breath, the being that prays, the nephesh of human legacy in a broken world. So again, Dennis, thank you very much. And you'll get what the questions are here in a second, but I answered Dennis. I said, hey, Dennis, great set of questions. Let's scrape the dust off this part of our history using original Hebrew language, biblical culture, and contextual theology, especially in Genesis 4, 1 and 2. I'll also weave in Dr. Skip Moen's insights and Hebraic worldview were helpful. Now, some of you may, we like your face with a lot more beard. That's funny. Thank you, brother. Hey, Miss Kim. Hey to everybody. Hey, Lisa C. Good to see you. Alarm Guy, Robert C. So nice to see all of you. And the ones that I don't see in there, I don't see everybody unless you comment. So just thank you. Thank you very much for your thumbs up and all the things you do. So when I said the word contextual theology, like if you grew up in a KJV only environment, and oh, by the way, someone said, hey, what happened to all your hair? I got my head shaved because my dear friend, who I've known for decades, is fighting cancer. And so in solidarity, boom, there you have it. That's why. So when I said the words contextual theology, you might have had a yip in your heart rate. You might have yipped in whatever you were doing. Like if you're trying to make dinner right now, if you're trying to make dinner and you heard me say that, you might have, I hope you didn't cut yourself. Don't be using sharp knives when you're listening to my show, because contextual theology freaks people out. Because, and the people that it freaks out is like, if you don't really, maybe, I don't know, maybe this has been you. Have you ever thought you knew what a word meant, and then some good person, hopefully they weren't ridiculing you, but maybe some good person, we definitely will, Keith. We definitely will. God bless you. Keith is asking prayer for his health. Absolutely, Keith. We'll pray for you by name. So maybe you've used a word and you thought, has anybody here seen The Princess Bride? Anybody? Have any of you seen The Princess Bride? Now, I don't want to get a copyright strike here. Let me see if I can. Okay. Yeah, Rumble's still down. I was going to try to pull up that clip and put it on there. I know I can put it on Rumble. So there's a certain point where the characters, this is an old movie, The Princess Bride, and a certain character, Inigo Montoya, the bad guy here, he's trying to trick people, God rest his soul, I think he's passed away, says he keeps using a certain word, and Inigo Montoya says, you keep using that word. I don't think you know what it means. And so that's kind of, that was kind of the count on Sesame Street right there. I was totally hosed that. But the fact of the matter of it is, have you ever had that happen? Somebody says a word incorrectly, and maybe you're hearing it and you're like, I know that's not what it meant. I did that once at a speech at my first marriage. The both of them are the husband and wife who this involved. They were both involved in my wedding, and dear man. And I was so honored to have him. But I was thinking of a certain word, but I used a different word in my dedication to him. I did a dedication to all of my groomsmen, and I explained exactly why. And I used the wrong word. And people tried to say, I don't think that's the word you're intending to say. And I was like, oh, no. I was 20 years old. Idiot. And I was smarter than I am now, but a lot dumber. And so anyway, I used a word incorrectly, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Have you ever done that? Right? So contextual theology, we can apply that same feeling, that same emotion, because it means what it means within the context wrapped around it. people that'll hold up this Bible, they haven't read it cover to cover. They certainly don't know the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Koine Greek, but they'll say, well, anytime you put the word contextual, context, there is no context. It applies broad base, and it's frustrating to me. And if you watch the interview the episode I did, it's recent with Jerry and Myra, also under the live tab. Jerry talks about reading other people's mail, and it's a fantastic thing to say because it really spells it out, really explains it. So there was specific things going on. The language at the time makes a difference. The biblical culture, just culture in general, the biblical culture, and especially from Genesis 4, 1 and 2. These are critical things, right? So we have to think about those things because, listen, this is inarguable. Well, you could argue it'd be silly if you did, but it ain't like, now is not like what it was like when this was all happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a very different time now. We're living in a very different time. Very different circumstances. I'm not negating anything, any importance or meaning or any of these things, but I'm saying to you, it's a very, very different time. Inarguably. I mean, you could, but you'd be really stupid to do so. So, there was a bunch of questions that Dennis fired at me. One of them were Cain and Abel twins? So the Hebrew in Genesis 4, 1 and 2 reads this way. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, I have had a male child with the Lord's help. She also gave birth to his brother Abel. Let me read that again a little faster. Now the man knew his wife Eve. Knew. I mean, this is PG, folks. I ain't going to go into detail. I think you know. And she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, I have had a male child with the Lord's help. She also gave birth to his brother Abel. So the wording is Vatsef. Vatsef laledet. Vatsef laledet. Leledet. Vatsef leledet. And she again gave birth. This is what it means. And she again gave birth. It doesn't repeat. So, and Adam knew his wife. So, let's go in line. Vitsef. It's Vitesef leledet. And she again gave birth, which doesn't repeat, and Adam knew his wife. So it doesn't repeat, knew. Look, I'm dancing around this, but you know what I'm saying. It wasn't a separate knew, it was the original knew. So that's a Hebrew storytelling clue here, right? If you didn't know the Hebrew, you wouldn't know what that meant. So you'd be toiling away, depending on some other schmuck, to tell you, hoping that they learned correctly. And they probably didn't speak Hebrew, and they probably didn't know the true contextual, historical, and biblical context. They were just kind of doing what they'd always been told or what they always thought. Or they kind of go around it and they say, well, I don't really want to talk about this. I don't really want to, it's, and by the way, we're going to come into some much, much harder questions that Dennis asks, and it's going to be a wee bit, and by a wee bit, I mean a million bit. It's going to be a million bit. Don't worry, it's just the alarms. A million bit more uncomfortable. And I'm sorry to tell you, but it's going to get real uncomfortable. And I'm going to tell you why most preachers won't talk about some of the things we're going to talk about. These two births happened in one pregnancy. Now, I happen to know somebody, two people, who were born, they're twins, they're identical twins, but they were born on different dates, a couple days apart. Coming up, actually. And I adore them. I adore them. They're precious. Both caregivers in their own way. But it doesn't repeat, and Adam knew his wife. Now, you've got to take that Hebrew storytelling cue. The two births happened in one pregnancy. Now, many Jewish scholars, and even some early Christian ones, interpret this to mean Cain and Abel were twins, with Cain being the firstborn. That's very important. The firstborn in Hebrew, or the original culture, was critically important. It was a big deal. So then the next question was Cain the first vegetarian and Abel the first carnivore? That's a good question. Dennis asked good questions. So that's funny. I had to laugh because my buddy Dennis is, he's the carnivore's carnivore. So let's take it deeper. Genesis 1:29, verses 29 and 30 show that everyone, including animals, was vegetarian at first. Right? If you read that, you can't mistake it. If you read it, it's unmistakable. Everyone, including animals, was vegetarian at first. There was no meat eating until after the flood, which was Genesis 9:3. So what Abel offered, the fat portions of his flock, it wasn't about a barbecue for dinner. Right? This wasn't about a barbecue for dinner. It was a sacrificial offering acknowledging sin and death. Well, Cain, on the other hand, he brought some of the fruits of the soil, but not first fruits. Bikurim, in Hebrew, bikurim, or his best. He didn't bring his best. He didn't bring his first fruits. He didn't bring his best, the bikurim. This isn't about vegetarian or carnivore, by the way. It's about heart versus habit. Abel brought what cost him something. On the other hand, Cain brought only what was convenient. Now, Dennis's other excellent question was, why didn't God accept Cain's offering? Hebrews 11:4 nails this, right? If you don't know the Old Testament, you can't know the New Testament, and there's so much of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Hebrews 11:4 nails it. By faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain did. Cain didn't sin by offering plants. He sinned by offering without faith. In Hebrew culture, faith is action-oriented obedience. And Abel offered with intent. He had a sense of humility. And it cost him. Cain offered with just obligation. I got to tick this box, so I'm just going to pull this little thing out of the ground. And there you go, God. Good for you. God even tells Cain, if you do well, won't you be accepted? That means Cain knew that he knew what well was. He knew what well was. He knew what doing well was. He knew the right thing to do, the right thing to sacrifice. He knew what that was. He just chose not to. Have you ever been in that place? Either by giving God that thing that's less than what you know you should have given him, what you know you could have given him, what you know you were equipped to give him. But you gave him that lesser thing. I have lived a life marked with either not giving the thing or giving the lesser thing. And I've paid the consequences for it. Cain knew. He knew what well was. He chose not to. So, and then the next good question was, what instrument did Cain use to kill Abel? Right? What was the tool? Genesis 4:8 is deliberately vague, and this has been hotly debated for a long time among Bible geeks like me. I'm literally surrounded by Bibles, bookshelf Bibles, table Bibles, book holder up there, 2 Bibles. There's Bibles in the other room. There's 2,579 books on the little thing that I run this show with, and I don't know, 200 are Bibles. I've got Bibles in the other room that are over 130 years old. Yeah, I'm a Bible geek. And this confounds me. Genesis 4:8 is deliberately vague. In the Hebrew, it's just Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Boop. Oh yeah, by the way, there was a murder, right? There was this murder. You don't have to worry about what it was, what he used. It was just a murder. I don't know. It's just, come on, let's move on. Let's not go deep in the murder. Right? Just no murder weapon and no murder weapon mentioned. I have to say, God only tells us what he says. You need to know this. This you need to know. So some rabbinic midrash say a rock. Some say a farming tool. Could have been either one. But the Bible avoids naming the weapon to highlight the deeper weapon, right? Tool, weapon, right? I've been around weapons my whole life. From 1983, I've carried a gun professionally. It's a long time. It's decades. There's all kinds of weapons. There's all kinds of weapons. One of my friends, police officer, Lieutenant Joey Zerba, may God rest his soul, killed with a 2.5-inch penknife. Unbelievable. Murdered 2.5 inch. Tool doesn't matter. More people are killed with baseball bats than with guns. I know, you don't want to believe it, but it's true. The weapon doesn't matter. The weapon doesn't matter. The deeper weapon here. I have to believe that this is why God chooses not to tell us what was the weapon. We think, by the way, I'm all tangled up on this wire. I can't be trusted around wires and whatnot. I got to find a better way. I need a tech advisor. God intentionally doesn't tell us the weapon, the physical weapon, I believe, to highlight the deeper weapon, which is Cain's jealousy, his rage, and his rejection of God's instruction. Those are the real weapons, and those are the things we have to learn about. We have to say, hey, I don't want to get involved in all this. I don't want to go deeper like this. This was... Why do I need to know this? I'm sure there are people out there listening either live or on playback going, dude, why do I need to know this? I appreciate you know all this Hebrew. Why do I need to know this? Do you have jealousy? Have you experienced jealousy? Have you been in a rage? Ever? And have you, like me, ever rejected God's instruction? Let me tell you. God whispers to us in our pleasures, and he shouts to us in our pain. And then Dennis asked, is there a timeline from Eden to the murder? Well, not precisely. But we can estimate based on, we can put bits and pieces together. Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel outside the garden, right? Didn't happen in the garden, happened outside the garden. I don't know if they had never sinned. I don't know. I say they, people want to throw it all on Eve. No. The first sin wasn't Eve. The first sin was a lack of leadership on the part of Adam. Absolutely. So I wonder, what would have happened? The propagation of earth. He invented one out of the dirt and one out of the rib. He could have done it and multiplied that a bazillion times. I don't know. I don't know how he would have done it. But once the fall happened, out you go out of the Eden. Out you go. Genesis 4 doesn't give years. But Genesis 5:3 says Adam was 130 when Seth was born, which is after Cain killed Abel. So that's math. So if we assume Cain and Abel were born shortly after Eden, and Cain killed Abel as a young adult, maybe 18 to 40, because look, you're living hundreds of years, right? 130, 140, 150, 200, how much ever? 18 to 40 is you're a young adult. The murder likely happened within 50 to 100 years of Eden. You imagine the stories. Have you ever thought of this? The stories that they might have told. Like, we have stories that we tell, right? We tell stories and we say, oh, well, I remember back when. They remember perfection. Adam, and Eve, they remember perfection. They remember when there was no struggle, no strife. You'd think that would be burnt into their psyche. I am never doing that again. And how many times have we said, if you are struggling with a hurt habit or hang up, and you're trying so hard to beat that hurt habit or hang up, and you do it again, or whatever it is, whatever the thing is you're struggling with, and you say, again with that thing. But you said the first time, and maybe you avoided the full consequences, or maybe you didn't, and you say, I will never do that again. I can tell you, I don't know how many people I have talked to that served 20, 25 years in prison. And they were out of prison 2 weeks. Now, they said the day they got out of prison and the week before they got out, I am never coming back to this place. I am never doing anything remotely that will bring me back to this place. 2 months later, boop, back in. We do it again. We do it again. And it's so tough. It's just, again with this. We do it. We look at ourselves and go, again with us. And until our own hurts, habits, and hang-ups grieve us, we'll never get how it grieves God. We will never, ever get how it grieves God. Then one of Dennis's podcast puppy has come in. He's checking on me. I raised my voice. He's like, Papa, what's going on? I wish I could put him on camera here. Good little guy. He's a good little guy. So the next question, Dennis, when did Cain get a wife? And oh, I can't imagine, Dennis, I can't imagine you typing this question up. How you were maybe, do I want to ask this? Do I really want to know? When did Cain get a wife? And was she his sister? Wait. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. Yes, it was his sister. Sorry. I know pastors want to skip over this, man. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to know. We don't want to talk about it. As a pastor who's been in many pulpits. Hey, Dennis, I say all the time, I have a face for radio. I do. Pastors don't want to talk about this. Preachers don't want to talk about it. Teachers, we don't want to talk about it. I remember I got asked this I taught in Bible college, and I remember I got asked this by one of the students, and they were not a doctoral student. I was teaching an undergrad, and so I have to tell you, it was tough. It was tough because a female student asked this, and as you know, they kind of choose where they sit, right? And it's kind of raised up how it goes, and stadium seating. And then there's me up front. And it's kind of dark a little bit, and there's a light on me, all that, you know how it is. And you could see she was just struggling. She was trying so hard to figure out the way to ask this question without asking the question. You know what I mean? She was just trying to... Yeah. Genesis 5:4 says Adam had other sons and daughters. The only humans alive were from Adam and Eve. So Cain's wife had to be his sister or his niece. Bottom line. But back then it wasn't immoral or weird. That was the gene pool. That was the available. There was no, that wasn't weird or immoral back then. The gene pool was pure. And no command happened yet against two things, incest or plural marriage. That hadn't happened yet. That came later under Moshe or Moses. There you have it. I know, uncomfortable. Who would interpret the mark to kill Cain, and how many people were alive then? That's a great question. That's a little bit more deep. Genesis 4:15 goes this way. The Lord put a mark on Cain so that whoever found him would not kill him. A mark. He put a mark on him so that whoever found him wouldn't kill him. This means there were whoever's, right? Did you catch that? Plural people already alive. More than one people already alive. Outside of them, that family already alive. How? Adam and Eve's descendants were multiplying for decades, exponentially, obviously, of course. And in that era, people lived centuries and had many, many children. By conservative estimate, hundreds of people may have been alive. So the mark, or ot in Hebrew. Ot. It's a sign or signal possibly visible, maybe symbolic, perhaps divine protection. Whatever it was, people recognized it, which implies they knew who Cain was and they understood God had marked him. The community knew what had happened. The community was small. They told stories. This was a common trait of the Hebrew people, these original people. It was a common trait. That's how things went along. That's how things were furthered. They told stories. The community knew what happened. Yes, Cain and Abel may have been twins. Cain wasn't rejected because of veggies, but because of heartlessness. The murder weapon isn't named because it's not the point. The timeline spans a few decades after Eden. Cain's wife was absolutely a sister or a close relative, and the mark was known by others because there were others, born of Adam, born of Eve. So let's go a little deeper. This may seem repetitive, but you'll see. You'll see where I'm going. Genesis 4:1-2, Cain and Abel, twins, murder, and that mark that protected a killer. Let's go beneath the surface, right? Genesis 4:1-2, the man was intimate with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, I have had a male child with the Lord's help. She also gave birth to his brother Abel. Right away in Hebrew, we get something striking. The phrase she conceived and gave birth is vatahar vateled. Vatahar vataled. Vataled. Vatahar vataled. Conception and birth. Vatahar, conception, vataled, which is birth. Followed by the phrase, she also gave birth, which is vatosif laladet. Vatosif laladet. Hebrew doesn't repeat Adam knowing Eve again. And this is key. Why am I repeating it? You'll see. That vatosif, literally she added, suggests the same pregnancy, right? So we talked about that. But how do we, some of the tools that we use, and Jewish tradition targums, Rashi and modern, and you think of this what you will, the modern, postmodern Western evangelical will look at that and go, well, we don't look at those things because we got the Bible. This is it. We only have this, and that's what we have, and that's what we need, and that's it. You don't understand, Look, don't be so mad at the Jews. They've kept this thing alive for thousands and thousands of years before there was any thought of us. And they've kept the sacred documents for thousands and thousands of years. We owe them a debt of gratitude. There'd be no us if it weren't for them. So they had Jewish tradition targums. They had Rashi. They had Midrash. They had modern rabbis. They all say they see this as a twin birth. Cain was born firstborn, and then Abel, same conception, same womb. They shared a place in the womb. But here's the kicker. Eve names. This is the part that I said, hang on. You've got to hang on. You've got to want to get in there and dig a little deeper, because you get This is at no cost or obligation to you. Free of charge, no cost or obligation to you. But it's worth it. Eve names the first son Cain from Chana. To acquire or to possess. She says, I have acquired a man with the Lord. Chana. I have acquired a man with the Lord. Cain was her prize. That name carries ownership, expectation, hope. And let's just also say pride. What about Abel? In Hebrew, havel, which means vapor, breath, vanity. The same word used in Ecclesiastes to say meaningless. You read that right. Are you listening? Are you listening? Is anybody listening? It's the same word havel used in Ecclesiastes to say meaningless. From the start, Abel's name foreshadows fragility and death. What an utter disparate contrast. The son she was so proud of, Cain. She was so proud of him. She named him Chana. He became a murderer. And the one named breath becomes a sacrifice. Maybe you never knew that. Maybe you think that's useless information. Well, God did not teach me to teach shallow. He taught me, and he has called me to teach deep. I hope you're in for it, because here we go. What really happened at the altar? Genesis 4:3-5. In the course of time, Cain presented some of the land's produce as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also presented an offering, some of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. The Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but he did not have regard for Cain and his offering. So let's pause here a second. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Let's pause. Hold on. Let's do this. Boop. Nana must be home, because Podcast Puppy is going crazy. You can't hear it, but he is. You'll have to go see, buddy. He's afraid of the hard floors. He's got to get his nails done. When his nails are cut short, good to go. No fear. Nails are long, not so much. So let's take this break. The phrase in the course, I hope you're ready for this, by the way. I hope you're ready. The phrase in the course of time is miketz yamim. Miketz yamim. At the end of days. Miketz yamim. It's not in the course of time. It's at the end of days. This is not routine. This is a ritual moment, a festival offering maybe. This is a big deal. And Cain brings minshat, a grain offering. He brings minshat, a grain offering. Fine, right? It's grain. He's a farmer. Sure, if it's the first fruits. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, first fruits. That was the rule. That was the guidance. First fruits. But the Hebrew says, Mipri ha'adamah. Mipri ha'adamah. This is what it says in Hebrew. Mipri ha'adamah. Some of the fruit, not the best. Not the first. Just here you go, God. Whatever. Here you go. Whatever. Like he throws grain out or seed. If you're just, I got this seed left over. I don't care if it grows. I don't care. Just here you go, God. Mipli hadama. Some of the fruit. Not the best. Not the first. What was the instruction? He read the assignment. And he chose to ignore it. Have you ever been in that place? Are you listening? What about Abel? He brings, in Hebrew, mib shorot, the firstborn and their fat. Umechlefen. In Hebrew, this is costly. This is intentional. This is reverent. In Torah, the chelef, fat belongs to God. It's the choicest part of the offering. In our postmodern Western evangelical world, what happens? What happens? We trim the fat off everything, right? Not my buddy Dennis. But we trim the fat off everything, the postmodern Western evangelical world. We're like, hey man, fat bad. Cut it off. And throw it away. But I got to tell you. Oh, vocabulary. Dennis asks in chat. Dennis, the original asker of all these questions. So vocabulary is very important in this context. You had better believe it. Vocabulary and context is critical. My life changed when I came under the instruction of the professors at Masters International University. Back then it wasn't called Masters International University of Divinity. It was called Masters Divinity School and Masters Graduate School of Divinity, which I went to and graduated from both. And then I got another doctorate under the university. Anyway. But Dr. Moen, whose birthday was yesterday, happy birthday. He's not listening to this. He's somewhere in the world where they probably don't even have internet. Teaching. Wouldn't you know? Fat is the choicest, in Torah, fat is the choicest part of the offering. And Dr. Moen writes this, faith is not a feeling or belief, it's the Hebrew concept of emunah, which means acting in trust and obedience even when you don't see the outcome. Let me say that again. Faith is not a feeling or a belief. It's the Hebrew concept of emunah, which means acting in trust and obedience even when you don't see the outcome. Abel acted in emunah. Cain, he acted in assumption. Hebrews 11:4 confirms this. By faith. By faith. I'm working on it's probably 10 sermons down the road, but I'm working on a message. I'm hoping to do it in one podcast, one, hour or less podcast, where I talk about the by faith. I love preaching about that. Love teaching about it. So much more to know. So much more to know. By faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith, emunah. He didn't ask a bunch of questions to clarify. We're so arrogant in the postmodern Western evangelical world. We say, God, you need to tell me before I'll do it. You need to tell me. You need to tell me. Or I won't follow, God. I won't do this thing because I don't understand it. And in our arrogance, we say, and especially people who fight the word, they fight believing, they fight being people of faith. They say, I'm a science person because I don't understand it. This doesn't make sense. So I'm not following it. Emunah. Trust and obedience. Acting in trust and obedience even when you don't see the outcome. Cain was all about assumption. Abel, he acted in obedience and he couldn't see around the corner. Why did he do it? By faith. Hard to live God's way without a whole heap of faith. Why did I name this channel and my ministry and my book? This is my second book, by the way, lulu.com, Lulu.com. Just search for Dr. Shawn Michael Greener. Shawn is S-H-A-W-N, S-H-A-W-N. Michael, normal spelling, Greener, as in the grass is always greener. You will find my book in hardback there, and love for you to buy it. And yes, the photo on the front and the back, that is mine. True Word Faith for Life. Not for a time. But my life is particularly difficult now. Those of you who know me personally know that. I was privileged to ride adaptive recumbent trikes with my buddy, my new friend Tom. We were on Camp Lejeune, which I live near Camp Lejeune. And people were so nice to us. They were incredible to us. I'm obviously disabled. People were very kind. But I'll say this. Every moment that I think of myself as living this incredibly hard, challenging life, which, as I said the last episode, I said I wouldn't trade it. I really wouldn't. Days like today are hard days, and I don't love them. But I have never been closer to God in my life. Never. Life. And then I look at Johnny Joey Jones, great guy. Lost both of his legs, was in the hospital for a long time, months and months and months and months and months. His life is a life of pain. You say, well, his legs were blown off. How can that be pain? You never not have pain. Look what he's doing. Look at what so many others are doing. People burnt. Over 100% of their body blinded by fire. And they still smile. True Word. Faith for life. Emunah. I don't see around the corner. My first, when I was, and I totally whiffed on Twitter. I didn't understand it. My first handle on Twitter was Eminor Quietus, which in Latin kind of loosely means the quiet storm. And the person that gave me that, I was protecting. And back then I was fully able, very, very able. And I was a dangerous person. By need, dangerous. I didn't need a whole lot of faith, really, because I had a lot of trust in my own capabilities. And I had a surfacey understanding of this. I had a little better understanding than most people, maybe. I was a relatively smart kid. But not really. Not until the true word. Till I went to Masters. Like I say, Masters Divinity School and Masters Graduate School of Divinity, and now it's named Masters International University of Divinity. Dennis, thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Dennis got to go to his other meeting. But Dennis is the reason for all these questions and thus this podcast. Or this episode. So living, I put in my open and my close, I talk about the understanding the real word. Not the sanitized word, the real word, what it really means. For a faith for life. Real life, for real people. Have you ever offered to God a sacrifice you knew you had better? You knew you could have done better. Maybe those who have been in church, maybe you knew you had a 20 and you knew you originally folded that 20 up to put in your billfold. You were going to put that 20 in the plate. But then you saw that 10 and you went, You know, when plate's coming, it's about 5 or 6 people down. And you've looked in your wallet and you're like, I was going to give the 20, but let me just go on and give this 10. And then how many of you can play piano beautifully? And you know you could play beautiful, beautiful worship music. You can write beautiful music. Beautiful music, but you don't. And God gave you this amazing gift. Maybe it's piano, maybe it's guitar, maybe it's trumpet, maybe it's flute, maybe it's duduk, whatever the instrument is. When you're asked to play it, you don't. No, I don't play publicly. You give an excuse. Maybe he gave you a voice. Maybe your voice is angelic, which I don't know why we say angelic, because go watch my episode on angels. They weren't what Hollywood makes them out to be. And even what we sanitize them to be, sometimes we make them into something they weren't. And by sometimes, I mean almost all the time. And maybe you just don't sing. You sing real quiet when you're in church. You sing with no emotion. You just sort of just sing the words and you hit the notes, but whatever. You don't pour your heart into it. Is anybody out there listening? Is this message, is anyone hearing this? Because this message is for somebody out there. What kind of sacrifices are you giving to God? So what about the murder weapon? I said before, it's irrelevant. The heart was the blade. The heart was the blade. The heart was, if they had firearms, if the heart, you know, a tool, a farming tool, if it was a club, if it was a stick, a rock, whatever. The heart. Genesis 4:8, Cain said to his brother Abel, and when they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. He shared the womb with the man he killed. He lived his entire life and he killed him. In most manuscripts, again, this is why going to Masters was such a blessing, because you go so much deeper. At least I did. Under my course of study, I did. In most manuscripts, the dialogue is missing. It literally says, and Cain said to Abel, his brother, then nothing. Like the sentence was interrupted. You might have thought when I read this, Genesis 4:8, you might have thought, well, Dr. Shawn, you missed something. Cain said to his brother Abel, period. And when they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. And you probably thought, the doc is losing his mind a little bit. No. It literally says, and Cain said to his brother, nothing. Like the sentence was interrupted by an earthquake. Why the silence? Because what he said at that point in time doesn't matter. It's what he did that speaks the loudest. The Hebrew verb for killed, vayaharagihu, vayaharagihu, vayaharagihu. It isn't accidental. It's premeditated. And it's cold, cold-blooded. Rabbinic speculation imagines a stone, a farming tool, a knife. But that's missing the point. The real murder weapon? Rejection of God's call to repentance. And God told him, sin is crouching at the door, but you must rule over it. And Cain opened the door, and he let it devour him. Now, I said I was going to tell you what that little box is if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn channels. There's this little box, I forget now again, UCR code, I think that's what it is. It's a little box with all the little weird stuff. So if you hold your phone up to that under the camera, you have your camera thing on, and then you click on that link that comes up, that's going to take you to a landing page at Masters, International University of Divinity. It's the one I talk about all the time. No, they are not sponsors. They're not paying a dime for this. I'm doing it for free. Why? Because I want to. They've sowed into me. Least I can do is give back. We've given our money over the years, different gifts that we've given, and obviously sometimes we paid our tuition ahead paid it in full all at once, and when we're doing well. And then other times, when we're doing so well, but we paid our tuition, and because that's a commitment, that's a covenant, and then we were able to give gifts over the years. And the bottom line is, none of that is a hill of beans. The people that sowed into me, unbelievable. So they have this thing called a certificate program. And maybe you want to get your feet wet. You're like, I don't know, do I have enough time for this? Start with a certificate program. See if you have we'll use the term discipline. See if you have the discipline to complete it. I'd start with, it's like if you're not sure if you're really made for college, it's like starting with community college. It's like starting with trade school. You know what? You'll do so well in trade school, sometimes you won't need college. In fact, I would tell you most of the time. The fact of the matter is, if you say, look, I'm thinking about advanced, theological education, maybe you want to aspire to be a Sunday school teacher. Maybe you want to be a deacon. Maybe you'd like to be a preacher. I don't know. But maybe you start with this. And the folks at Masters, Dr. Barry Jenkins, Dr. Cheryl Durham, amazing people. All of the professors, everyone there, amazing people. They came to me and they said, what if we offer your audience? Now, they, again, didn't offer me any money, and I didn't ask for it, and I wouldn't have taken it. Not about that. They said, what if we offered your listeners a 10% discount for our certificate programs? Click on that. I'll have a link. There's a link too, but that represents the link. Takes you right where you need to go. And then if you get on the phone, you talk to them, tell them, how'd you learn about us? From Dr. Shawn Michael Greener and the True Word Faith for Life podcast. They will give you a 10% discount. I kid you not. 10% in these days, that's a big deal. How long after Eden did this happen? How long? That was a great question on the part of Dennis. Genesis doesn't give years for Cain and Abel's birth, right? Wasn't a lot of that then. They weren't recording that way. Time was different then. But we do know from Genesis 5:3 that Adam was 130 years old when Seth was born, right? That was the next sibling. This was the replacement for Abel. So the murder occurred before year 130 of Adam's life. That we can do. Assuming Eve started bearing children shortly after exile, Cain and Abel were born within 10 years of Eden. Then Abel was likely murdered before the age of 120, perhaps. Before age 120, not the age 120, perhaps in his 20s to 50s, a young man's crime. This world was not old. The world wasn't old at this point, and murder. We're going to go to the next one. We laughed about it before. Cain's wife, sister, full stop. I'm on the side of sister. Genesis 4:17 says this: Cain was intimate with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. Cain had to marry her sister or niece. I said that before, the sister or niece. It's one or the other. Genesis 5:4 says Adam had other sons and daughters. There was no law against intermarriage yet. The genetic pool was pristine. Marriage to a close relative only became problematic after the many generations of DNA decay. Then the mark. God put that mark, that oat, remember? Hebrew oat. Who would kill Cain? How many people were alive? Genesis 4:14 and 15. Anyone who finds me will kill me. So the Lord put a mark on Cain so that whoever found him would not kill him. People often think, wait, who else was around? Well, Adam and Eve didn't just have 3 kids. They had many. In 100+ years, hundreds could be alive, all from the same bloodline. The Hebrew word for mark, remember, is ot. It's the same word used for covenant signs like the rainbow. No, it doesn't mean what it's been co-opted to mean. Or the Sabbath, Shabbat. This wasn't just a physical mark. It was a divine protection, a sign, do not touch God's justice. But who could interpret the mark? Everybody. Because it was God's reputation that backed it up. Nobody wanted to mess with a man that God marked. Now, I'm almost finished. You have made it till the darn near end. This story isn't about Cain and Abel. Because Cain and Abel are all of us. The story is not about ancient murder. It's about worship that matters and hearts that wander. Cain and Abel teach us that God doesn't want what's easy. He wants what costs us. Abel brought firstborn sacrifice and Cain brought leftovers. Abel brought emunah, faithful action. Cain brought assumption. Abel died in obedience and Cain lived in punishment. You want to know what the mark on Cain is today? It's every man who refuses to deal with sin, who walks with guilt but not repentance. Every time we ignore God's warning, sin is crouching, it's right behind that door. We mark ourselves. In the Legacy Standard Bible, Genesis 4, 1 and 2. Now the man had relations with Eve his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain, and she said, I have gotten a man with the help of Yahweh. And she gave birth again to his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of flocks, but Cain was a cultivator of the ground. These verses may seem so simple. I've dedicated my life, decades, to peeling back the layers, to digging under the first part of the ground, to see what's beneath the surface. And this is what you'll find. Layers of theology, deep longing, and the heartbreak of a mother who once heard the voice of God and now only hears silence outside Eden's gates. We're going to stop there. My friends, I think there's a lot of times there's only so much you can take. You know what I mean? We'll add this to Monday's episode. I don't want you to miss any of it. And I'll see to it you don't. Adam and Eve are parenting in a broken world. They remember Eden. They live with exile. They see promise and they feel pain. And still God plants seeds of hope. Even in failure, hope can live. Even when we are far from Eden, God is still at work. Their story and our story, another seed, another tree. Yeshua, the true seed, the better Abel. He didn't just offer a lamb, he was the lamb. And unlike Cain, he laid his life down willingly. My friends, I know that this is hard to listen to. I know that it's harder than the stuff that just makes you feel good and makes you shout, makes you lift your hands, makes you stomp on the ground and say, I feel the presence of the Lord in this place tonight. God hasn't. I will preach evangelical and evangelistic powerful messages. Make no mistake. But this he's called me to today is to teach you what's beneath the surface. What's beneath your surface? What is beneath your surface? Heavenly Father, You are not an awesome God. You are the awesome God. To you alone we give our praise. We give the first fruits of our praise, not the last. I pray for each and every person who is listening, not only to the sound of my voice, but the echoing of your word, the scriptures that we read. I thank you for giving me teachers and professors who taught me. Dig deeper. Aim higher. Give better. I thank you for each and every one of them, for those that have gone to their reward and are with you now, and for those who still toil away and teach. Thank you, Father. I pray, Father, in the name of your matchless Son, Yeshua. Yeshua. Amen. I look forward to seeing all of you on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a powerful Mother's Day message. And then we'll get back to this series. Until then, Shabbat Shalom. Shalom Aleichem.